Identity. It's a big word. The etymology of identity is Latin, and it comes from the word identitas, which means the same. But that's weird, because our identity is what makes us different. Here's just my first question about identity. I have all kinds of questions about it. Like, okay, looking at me, who do you see? Most of you would answer a teenage white girl, probably of Irish descent, with long chestnut brown hair and a smattering of freckles. This is my sister. Many people's first thoughts are how nice their parents adopted a minority child. And I guess, in today's world, it is what my sister and I have come to expect, and it is a very natural reaction since you don't know us and you cannot know our story. I was born into a biracial home with a father and sister who looked darker than I. I can't remember my mindset at the right age of 3, but I do remember asking my sister, "What color are you?" She had the best response. "I'm caramel like the syrup on ice cream." Growing up, many questions were asked of my sister and me, confounding us because we never understood why all the questions. The statistics of mixed children has increased over the past decade. More than 7% of the 3.5 million children born are mixed. This is 5% more than the decade before. Children all over the world are being born every 22 seconds. This means that more than 7% of the 3.5 million children born are of 2 or more races. How fascinating. And 0.3% of the United States is transgender. With all these statistics of mixed children, of how many people of different identities are being born, we have to learn to embrace difference in the world. Still, sometimes it's hard for us to clarify our meaning as brothers and sisters in the world. Okay, more on identity. I recently watched the TED Talk, "Who Do You See When You Look at Me?" delivered by Dalia Mogahed, a traditional Muslim woman wearing the traditional hijab. Ms. Mogahed asked some really important questions in her talk. She asked, "Who do you see when you look at me? A mother? A terrorist? A professor?" She went on to say that because she looks a certain way, because she wears the hijab, people make assumptions based on this. People really mistook her identity, as they have thousands of Muslims in the past 15 years. So back to me and identity. My sister, Brianna, and me have experienced, in far less dramatic fashion, the same phenomenon as Ms. Mogahed. We go to the mall, and the barista at Starbucks asks, "Oh, I love when best friends come in. You are friends, right?" It always happens. We all make assumptions. However, I do it too. When I saw a boy at the beach on Monday, I mentioned I'd seen him at the beach on Sunday with his girlfriend. He said she was his cousin, so my assumption was incorrect too. Any question or statement about Brianna and me being related has always annoyed me a little. And it got me to thinking, why do we jump all over someone for making assumptions? But then again, maybe there are some scenarios where making assumptions is more damaging than others. And when do you forgive someone for their misimpression? Wasn't that barista who thought my sister and I were only friends because of our skin color, just trying to be nice? When do you draw the line between someone's misimpression and our level of outrage at these misimpressions? Here's another story of identity. This is the story of a person who didn't lie about their identity, or who didn't make assumptions about others, but purposely misled others to misinterpreted her identity. Do you all know who this is? Rachel Dolezal is a single mom who lives in Spokane, Washington, and has 2 children. She's the former president of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Not crazy about the use of the word colored in its acronym, but okay. Rachel Dolezal has worked for the NAACP for over 3 years and has done great work for them, like being the chair of the Spokane's Police Ombudsman. But things began to unravel for her when a reporter investigated her identity and determined that she was a white woman masquerading as a black woman. It was discovered that Dolezal was born and raised in Montana by white parents. A petition was begun, calling for Dolezal to step down. The petition clearly stated that the wish to have her step down was not about race, but about integrity. Is this wrong? My gut reaction is yes. But then I go to thinking, how is identifying by a different race dissimilar by identifying by a different gender? Is it wrong to believe that you're so empathetic to the black community that you identify as black, any more than it is wrong for an LGBTQ to identify as a different gender? We are in the process of witnessing legislation to make gender-neutral restrooms. Caitlyn Jenner has been celebrated on the cover of Vanity Fair for identifying as a woman. Are we stealing people's identity when we identify as something other than with which we are born? Or can we know in our hearts that we are something other than what our birth certificate says? And is gender different from race when we re-identify? We usually think of identity thieves as people who steal our credit cards, and over 55% of the United States residents have either lied about their identity or had their identity stolen. But the kind of identity stealing I'm talking about is, how do you know who you are? Who decides what religion you are or how you display yourself? When are you assuming the identity that is really yours, even if you weren't born with it? And when are you stealing someone else's identity? Look, I don't have the answers to all these identity questions, but we have to be brave enough to ask them. That barista wasn't implying that Bray and I aren't sisters, but he was taking an interest in our lives. Finally, if Rachel Dolezal looked black, but was really white and got called out for it, am I supposed to make it clear every time I walk into a room that I'm biracial so as not to mislead people? Maybe not. But I hope I've made you think about how you identify and how you identify others. Let's all be more like that barista. Ask people who they are without being afraid. We'll get a conversation going. Acknowledge each other's differences, and finally find that, like the etymology of the word identity suggests, that we are all the same. Thank you.